Welcome to STEM Up Baton Rouge's volunteer orientation and training session. My name is Kim Fossey, the Program Officer for STEM Up Baton Rouge, and I will be working with you throughout the duration of this project. Although our preferred method of orientation is face-to-face, this online version will provide you with STEM Up's overall strategy and tips for conducting a successful mentoring session. First of all, I would like to thank you for volunteering to be a STEM role model for this project. Designed to train volunteers, the goal of this orientation are reflected in our agenda. They are to provide essential background and history for the STEM Up program, steps for successfully leading an engineering project in a middle school classroom setting, responsibilities and expectations of volunteers, teachers, and students, a glimpse of the students you'll be serving, and finally, steps for getting off to a great start. Let's begin. According to the After School Alliance, a lack of a STEM identity is often cited as one of the primary reasons that young people don't pursue STEM fields. Research has found that even those students who do well in STEM subjects do not aspire to STEM careers. Oftentimes, the student's idea of what a STEM professional does and looks like doesn't match who they are. We believe that middle school mentoring can play a major role in assessing this issue early on and increasing students' chances of graduating from high school, prepared for success in college and career in Louisiana's growing knowledge economy. STEM Up Baton Rouge is a community-based collaborative project designed to close opportunity gaps and to strengthen our local STEM talent pipeline by providing high-impact STEM mentoring to middle school students in EBR. The mission of the project, co-sponsored by the Foundation for EBR Schools and the Capital Area United Way, is to increase interest in and access to STEM careers for all students. Our goals include increased middle school participation and achievement in STEM courses, increased strong business and school partnerships by engaging employees as role model mentors, and increased number of students interested in pursuing STEM careers. Our mission is to provide engaging and locally relevant STEM-rich learning experiences that positively impact student attitudes about learning and empower them to problem solve, think creatively, use technology appropriately, communicate, and learn from each other and mentors. This is what our high-impact mentoring 4-point framework looks like. It starts with a focus on the learning environment, which is multi-session with a total of 7 hours and is all project-based and linked to the curriculum. It is our hope that these units will increase interest in STEM, increase STEM knowledge and skills, and connect STEM topics with school practices and careers in a very relevant way. Our model targets underrepresented students, and our success depends on partnerships with STEM professionals like yourself and STEM-rich institutions. This framework outlines specific ways that high-impact mentoring will help build that STEM identity, will excite and sustain interest in STEM topics, build STEM knowledge, skills, and confidence, and provide valuable access to community professionals, relevant experiences, and valuable career possibilities. The outcome? Well, along with the role model in the curriculum, the teacher plays an important role in achieving our outcome, which is increased STEM identity. It is our hope that engaging STEM integrated engineering challenges will generate an interest in STEM, which I like to do this, lead to STEM practices and skills, I can do this, and establish STEM value and relevance, I want to do this, in the lives of our youth. One of the goals of our orientation is to give you the opportunity to experience what you will implement in your middle school classes. This section of the orientation will provide details on what the ideal learning environment should look like and the tools that you will use. It will also provide you with a few examples that you can experiment with so that you know what it feels like to engineer a solution or a technology and feel ready to lead the activities with the students. First, a little background on our curriculum. We have chosen the award-winning Engineering as Elementary curriculum developed by the Museum of Science in Boston. This curriculum promotes STEM literacy via exciting challenges that allow the student to act as engineers and scientists and engage in the engineering design process, thus positively impacting student attitudes about their own abilities and building STEM skills, literacy, and identity. Our goal is to create a fun and exciting learning experience for the students as well as the team, keeping it real for the world in which they live. Each unit will contain real problems that provide a practical application of STEM subjects that link careers. Each unit will also include real tools, inspiring students by showing them what is at their fingertips. Each unit will require teamwork, communication, leadership, and problem-solving skills, foster creativity, critical thinking, and innovation, and involve a real process, the engineering design process, a process they can use in just about any subject area that they're studying. The engineering design process is the backbone of each one of the units. It is a five-step process that guides kids in solving engineering challenges. The goal for each unit is for kids to understand how this process can help them solve problems not only in engineering but also in other areas of their lives. While there are many versions of the engineering design process that are used in both academic and professional settings of engineering, Engineering as Elementary has developed this five-step process that's pretty accessible for elementary school kids as well as middle school kids. Their 5 steps include ask, what is the problem? Imagine, what are some solutions? Plan, draw the diagram. Create, follow your plan and create something and test it out. And then finally, improve, what works, what doesn't, what could work better. The engineering design process always begins with the goal, the engineering challenge that the kids are going to be asked to solve. The process is cyclical and flexible. Kids can start a challenge at any step and jump around the steps as they are engineering their solution. For example, it is very common for kids to be creating their technology, but then ask questions about the materials or imagine new ways to improve their design. In all of the units, kids generally start with the ask step and then have time to imagine, plan, then create and improve their technologies. Each unit poses a unique engineering challenge that kids are asked to solve that requires one or more strands of engineering, such as biomechanical, chemical, environmental. The engineering design process is the backbone. It will help kids guide their design as well as their improvement of each solution. Each unit provides a unit map that provides a quick overview of how the activities or the lessons build upon one another, leading up to the major design and the showcase activities shown here. Generally, each unit will have 2 prep activities and then the multiple activities that will lead up to a showcase where students can share what they've learned. Tested, evaluated, and revised before release and piloted in schools. This curriculum is very thorough. For example, in the preview pages in the instructor manual, there is all kinds of relevant information, materials, preparations, a preview of the student journal that will be used. The guide features step-by-step instructions, including discussion questions, extension ideas, and tips. The engineering journal, which is for students, allows kids to record their findings and reflect on what they're learning. Team members are asked to review the entire unit before selecting one of the 2 activities that they will personally deliver. Let's experience some of the key activities included in each lesson. Before you start the actual unit activities, you should always begin with an icebreaker. Begin by introducing yourself. Tell the students who you are, where you work, and what you do. Students will also want to know why you chose your career and what you like the most about it. They'll also want to know about hobbies. They have many questions. These stories should be integrated throughout the lessons, but it is always a good place to start. Use a typical icebreaker for kids to introduce themselves. Some examples are listed on our website under Resources, and there are many activities that are included in the lessons. Let's do one of the prep activities first. In this particular activity, you will hand out a blank page to students. You will ask them to draw their interpretation of what an engineer does. Warn them that there is no right or wrong answer. Go around the room and ask each child to introduce themselves and share the picture if they want. Drawings will generally take on multiple formats, such as those pictured here: buildings, bridges, roads, fixing cars and machines, computers, and most of the pictures will most possibly be male. What you will want to do is provide the students with a definition of engineering that you will be using throughout the project. Here it is. Engineers design technologies to help people and to solve problems. You want to encourage students that they have the talent and the potential for designing and improving technologies, and that they too can be engineers. We'll need to tell the students that the lessons that you will be delivering will open up the field of engineering and STEM by letting kids experience real engineering design challenges, and that they will be given a design process to help them solve problems. The key message here is that the use of engineering challenges will help demonstrate the integration of STEM disciplines, a point that really needs to be driven home to the students, as well as an opportunity to build interest and identity for underrepresented in STEM fields today. Now that you've had a little background in the approach that we'll be using, let's experience it. Let's get comfortable with engineering and creating technologies. The first mini challenge that is offered in just about every one of the lessons or units reinforces discussion regarding engineering. It gives the students an opportunity to test out or to identify what it is that engineers do. First of all, you set the stage. Every lesson or every particular challenge is the stage is set by some challenge. For example, we would tell the kids today that they're going to be engineers and to use the engineering design process. We will read the challenge that is set forth in the teacher's manual. In this particular lesson, there are some animals living in a swamp along with lots of hungry alligators. The animals need to be at least 10 inches above the alligators to be out of their reach. The challenge is how to build a tall tower that is tall enough and strong enough that the animals can stand on. The first part of the process is to get students to think in terms of the engineering design process, which is imagine. Students are given out lots of materials that they will be used in this use in this challenge, and this first opportunity they get to explore the materials and imagine, how could I use these materials to engineer the pieces of my tower? At this point, you might want to share examples of how to build with index cards. Here's an example, and you might want to try this yourself. Tell kids it's time to plan and create their towers. You will show them the stuffed animal that you will use in this testing challenge, and you will give them both the criteria and the constraints for this particular challenge. Students will work in groups to engineer a tower that can hold an animal 10 inches in the air for at least 10 seconds. Each group will have 20 minutes and can only use index cards and tape. Scissors and rulers are tools only and cannot be used in the tower. Groups can hold the stuffed animal briefly but cannot test it on their tower until the 20 minutes are up. This gives students a great idea of what it's like to engineer. All engineers are presented with criteria and constraints by which they will design some solution. So now students enter the design, test, and showcase phase of their project. In terms of designing, as groups work, circulate around the room and ask questions like, why do you think your design will work well? Which step of the process are you using right now? How do you know? How did you come up with your design? Finally, during the tower showcase, when each group presents their tower, you might ask questions like, can you tell me about your design first? What steps did your group use the most? Finally, the showcase arrives, and each group will have one opportunity to place the animal on the top of his or her tower. You can count to 10 and observe what happens. Whether or not the tower stands, you will ask them after the test, how could you improve the design? What you would like to do next is to go through the engineering design process poster and talk to the kids about the steps they use to naturally solve the problem. How did you use this step of the engineering design process to solve the problem? Ask about the challenge. What are some of the action words that they use to design the process? Most kids will say, well, we talked to each other, we collaborated, we drew some pictures, we tested. Try to relate these words to the steps that are used in the actual design process. Finally, ask kids if they think that they are an engineer now. Tell kids that they have just used the same steps that engineers use to solve problems. This means that they're engineers too. Use engineering journals as well. It gives kids a great opportunity to draw, write, and reflect on their work. And it will help them remember what they've learned. A little bit about the engineering design process. This particular curriculum uses a 5-step process in grades 3 through 5 and a more elaborate version in 6 through 8. You may use whichever one you want in the lessons. It's very important that you go through the steps and make sure that the students understand how the steps work. They can also define these steps in their own words as well. Regardless, the process should be reinforced throughout the lessons, and because of the fact that it provides a great context for questioning and revising, it makes this whole design process much less threatening for the students. There are many takeaways here. You see a valuable need for a process. They realize that there are multiple solutions to every problem. It provides a common language to discuss design improvement and problem solving without getting into failure or criticism. And it encourages students to use wonderful 21st century skills such as critical thinking, creativity, and teamwork. These are skills that they can use in other areas of their lives and coursework that they may take. As a follow-up, you could do this activity if you haven't already done it. Many students will ask, what are technologies? This opens up the next activity, which is called Understanding Technology. Ask the students the definition of technology. In terms of building interest, skills, and identity, students need to understand the definition of technology. Engineering as Elementary defines technology as anything designed by humans in order to solve a problem. Do you think kids will be surprised by this? We suggest you play a game. Walk around the room, pointing to things and asking them if it's a technology or not. Students could divide up into teams. You could do this on the board. There are lots of ways you could do this, but it is a very helpful activity. Key takeaways from both of these introductory activities will encourage you to realize that technology includes more than high-tech electronics, that people who design technologies are engineers, and even fairly simple objects, such as a paper cup, has been thought about and designed by an engineer. They, too, can become an engineer. This next section will focus on the volunteers, you, the volunteer role model. In this section, we'll be talking about what this looks like, what it means to us, and the expectations and the requirements for this program. We'll start off with what stereotypes do students have regarding STEM professionals? You might ask them. Together, we could brainstorm many of the typical adjectives that young people might have about adults, particularly scientists or engineers. Our job is to counteract these less than flattering stereotypes and use positives to counteract these negatives. Why are role models important for STEM? Well, we think the best ambassadors for communicating information about the wide range of careers available are role models. They inspire students about their work and help them make informed decisions about their future. We're also hoping that our hands-on projects can spark an interest in science, technology, or engineering. But on their own, they may not lead to a career interest in these fields unless they're introduced through a role model. As a role model, you can dispel stereotypes such as pencil pocket protectors, solitary work, grueling hours, and mostly male. You can expand options, including offering a real glimpse inside a variety of careers. Feel free to let the student know what your day-to-day life is like, and also show interesting and useful applications for STEM. The key to dispelling stereotypes is to follow this recipe for success. Always be personal and passionate. How does STEM change the world? How does STEM affect what you do day to day? Make each activity interactive and use kid-friendly speak. Explain why your work matters and why you love it. All of these things will help fill a gap with academic and career guidance. If you talk to the students and tell them, how did you get there? How did you stay there? And most importantly, how can they get there? What skills, attitudes, and behaviors are so important? The STEM Up project encourages a team approach. Thus, everybody has an important role to play. The teachers will consult with the volunteers and staff on the lesson selection and modification. She'll always serve as a team leader throughout the project and is always present in the classroom. The volunteers will begin by registering on the Capital Area United Way Center site. If you have not already done this, we ask that you do this at the end of this presentation. We want you to turn in all required forms with signatures and complete with your team at least 7 hours of contact time with the students. It is our hope that you adhere to the STEM Up lesson format, coordinate with your team and your team teacher, participate in any pre-post surveys, complete our post-project reflection, and hopefully participate in online networking and best practice convenings. Our staff will be there with you every minute of the way, selecting school and providers, registering, matching you, providing training and orientation, as well as lesson help if needed. We will provide ongoing support both online and face-to-face, and will help you in handle any situation or problem that you might have. It is our hope that we truly work as a team, and for that to happen, communication is key. The critical steps in terms of getting started is to first meet as a team to review the curriculum. What you'll want to do is divide up the exercises based on the strengths of the team and the interests. It is also ideal if you select a leader. And of course, exchanging phone numbers or email addresses is key. Next, we ask that you meet with your teacher to gain practical information about school rules, procedures such as parking, visitor badges, etc. Your teacher will give you also great advice about the curriculum, scheduling, and grouping. We have asked that everyone be as flexible as possible. Next, you'll prepare for and deliver the lesson. Practice and always check the materials that will be deposited in the school classroom. Facilitate your lesson and update each team member after each lesson that you do. We also ask that you participate in a post-unit debrief and evaluation, which you will hear more about later after your lesson is completed. We require a 2-page form by all role model volunteers. This is included in your handbook, and it will be mailed to you by email, and we request that you return it as soon as possible. It must be signed by every volunteer that is going into the schools. STEMUpBatonRouge.org is there for support. We ask that all volunteers and teachers register to join. That way you can post or answer questions in the forum, access lesson resources, and learn more about STEM education in general. There is a forum for sharing and learning, and also a place to see events that you might be interested in attending. In this section, we will cover the students that we will be serving. What do we know about the youth we will serve? Consider a minute adjectives we hear in the media that describe youth. Consider the young people you know well: a child, a grandchild, godchild, a neighbor. Do these children fit the scary list of adjectives? Well, we don't want the media to describe youth for us. Let's start with a clean slate and think about and investigate a little bit about the students that we will be serving. Who are the students we will serve? Well, they're 6th through 8th graders at middle schools throughout EBR Parish. The students are approximately 11 through 13 years old, and they may even be attending after-school settings such as Big Buddy, Boys and Girls Club, etc. Our focus is on increasing underrepresented in STEM fields, and students will be informed initially of the project goals, as well as invited to culminating project presentations. Again, with a focus on underrepresented, we hope to increase the number of youth of color, females, youth from low socioeconomic backgrounds, and our first-generation college students interested in STEM. The middle school, EBR middle school demographics, as we know them, are 50% female, 85% students on free and reduced lunch, and 85% students of color. 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, roughly spanning ages 11 to 13, vary tremendously in their levels of maturity. And it has been said that middle school students are interested in absolutely everything for about a half an hour. Other than the first 3 years of life, this is the grade span which youngsters are most transformed. They enter middle school as children and leave us as young adults. 6th graders, except for a few more mature students, may look and act like children. They still regard the teacher as the font of knowledge and their unquestioned leader. 7th graders have typically entered what may be the most disorienting time of their life. They have discovered sexuality, but still deal with most things like children. Bickering and tattling are rampant, and they are intolerant of imperfection in anyone or anything. Finally, 8th graders are generally in the process of coming to terms with their emerging adulthood and are far more mellower than 6th or 7th graders. Many of them understand and appreciate irony and adult wit. While they are not children and want independence, they often prefer adult guidance to full responsibility. So, as you can see, we need a variety of instructional strategies and a quick pace. In order to connect with and retain our middle school age youth in a program that requires a substantial investment of time and energy, it's really essential to understand who they are and what motivates them. Appealing to the needs of their developmental level really makes this possible. We're talking cognitively, socially, as well as emotionally. Physical changes and development play a critical role in all aspects of a young person's characteristics at this age. Getting noticed in positive ways is really important. This chart provides key cognitive, social, and emotional characteristics to pay close attention to, along with key strategies and motivators that volunteers serving as role models should use. In particular, the engineering is elementary curriculum will provide many of these motivators throughout most of the activities. Many of the children served in the STEM Up Baton Rouge program may live in high poverty areas and or high crime areas, and very often live with one parent or even a relative. Child development experts tell us that a traumatic and unstable circumstances can lead to delays in normal development. The ability to trust is the first and perhaps most important element in development. This comes with nurturing caregivers and a safe and stable environment. In Reclaiming Youth at Risk, the authors point out that youth in high-risk situations have 4 basic needs: belonging, mastery, independence, and generosity. Youth want to gain the acceptance, attention, and affection of others. They also want to master their environment and be good at something. They want to control the world, their world, and gain the respect of others, but also need to be needed in the lives of others and want to be viewed as contributors. Because STEM Up volunteers and staff members will focus on these areas in order to fulfill the needs of our students, it's important to look at each one of these needs individually. It is also important to note that when these needs are not met for a child, the most common responses are to act out and drop out. Again, the Engineering is Elementary project and unit activities will provide great opportunities for some of these to fulfill some of these needs, such as team exploration, multi-solution challenges that allow for choices, exploring various careers and discussing importance of academics, as well as teamwork and how students can work together and meaningful problem solving. This slide presents a list of best practices. Our curriculum requires that students work in groups, which is great because this age group will want to be social in any way. What we want to encourage is a fun, social environment where they can work together and be productive. We are encouraging learning contracts for teams and avoidance of lecture at all points and allowing students with lots of ways to express their ideas. Each lesson will encourage collaboration and decision-making, opportunities to meet challenges, interactions with adults and role models, with a lot of guided freedom. Remember that middle schoolers like a challenge. Often the key is not what is taught, but how it's taught. So it's key to combine routine and surprise, recognize each student's contributions, always emphasizing the relevance to what they're doing to the real life, as well as their classwork, fostering exploration throughout the entire project, and the option for artistic expression. A variety of teaching strategies and a quick pace will ensure success. And don't forget a sense of humor. The process is just as important as the product, and students must always understand this. They must always be involved. Let's get back to the learning environment. Now that we've illustrated a couple of the prep activities earlier in the presentation, let's dip into a larger challenge associated with a unit. In this section of the presentation, you'll understand what it means to lead an engineering session successfully, learn essential questioning techniques suited for project-based learning, and how to adapt lessons when necessary. The challenge we will discuss over the next few slides is from a biomechanical engineering unit called Put a Lid on It, Engineering Safety Helmets. Biomechanical engineering is a field that involves combining mechanical engineering and biology. The challenge that we will introduce next occurs early on in the unit that will eventually require students to plan and create a safety helmet at the end. Designed to be an introductory activity, students will learn that there are many ways to protect a falling object from damage and that the properties of materials, along with the way they are used, can make them either a good or a poor choice for a task. This is the unit map that is included in this unit. It outlines where the prep activities go, the central activities, the major challenge at the end, and a showcase. At this point, you should remind the youth that engineers are people who design technologies that solve problems. They have already designed a wall and have thought about many other types of technologies that engineers have designed. So let's begin with this challenge, which is called Pasta Package. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, head injuries are the leading cause of death in young adults and children. The number one thing adults can do to protect children from injury is to make sure they wear helmets whenever engaging in sports. Ask the students to think about a helmet that they have worn or familiar with. You'll ask, are helmets technologies? What problems do they solve? Well, of course, helmets are technologies because they solve the problem of protecting the skull and the brain. So, they qualify as a technology. Why do you think engineering helmets are an important challenge? Well, without helmets, people aren't able to protect their brains in dangerous situations and could cause permanent damage. The background video that is provided in the Engineering Elementary website is very cool and will give kids some background information that is needed for their challenge. In the challenge, the students will be engineering a helmet to protect a model brain. Today, they will be working with a model brain and skull and engineer some ways to protect the model brain from damage during a fall. Each activity provides a preview that lists all supplies, materials, anything you will need for the challenge. You will want to review and prepare for this ahead of time. In this lesson, the facilitator either makes some brain-like substance or uses clay to simulate the brain. You will want to demonstrate this first. What happens when the pasta shells drop to the floor without protection? It explodes. You will want to ask the students a leading question. What type of impacts do you think a fall like this could have on a human brain? After some discussion, go over the materials that youth will have available to protect their model brain from damage. Some of the materials that are required in this project are plastic sandwich bag, cotton balls, pipe cleaners, bubble wrap, and craft foam. Students will do this project in teams. Explain while they are considering their unit that they can use whatever materials they would like, but it must fit the criteria and the set of constraints. 100 index cards, a foot of tape, a ruler. The package can't be larger than 4 inches in any direction. The package will protect the brain when dropped from a height of 5 feet. Always allow for reflection and description of steps that they use to complete the activity. Students will think and consider the engineering design process and use their notebooks as a guide through their design. As students work through the process to provide packaging for their pasta, check in and ask them, how did your group come up with the design? What parts of your design do you think will work well? In what ways did your design change as you were building it? And finally, how could you improve on the design? When groups are ready, they can measure and drop their design at a testing station. After testing, they should look carefully to see whether or not the brain was damaged. Have them record results in their notebooks. After testing, always encourage groups to improve their designs, either by better protecting the model brain or by using fewer materials. This is a great discussion to have. Now that you've seen a couple of activities, again, let's take a closer look at how this activity fits into the larger unit. The unit map is featured in every unit, and it allows you to see how the activity fits and contributes to the value of the lesson. In this sense, what is the goal? What scaffolding activities prepare the kids for the final challenge? How did the activity you just did complete into the total unit? And any materials that are provided that would have been helpful to have added during your challenge. How do we define success? As a student, you might ask your students, how do you know if you were successful? Most common responses from students would be, well, our design met the goals. They were the best. They looked the best. They received the best comments. As an educator, how would you know if the kids were successful in these activities? How is this different? Educators will describe the success as, oh, I saw the students collaborating and they were all engaged, they listened to each other, they respected each other. These two are very different, and we have to keep this in mind. What a teacher's view of success and what a student's view of success is are quite different. This curriculum has identified 3 markers of a successful activity. Kids are engaged and challenged, they share their ideas, and they value their engineering work as a process, not just as the end result. So we think that educators and role models can alter the way their kids view success and failure by focusing on the engineering design model that we talked about earlier. It's important to note that a failed design is an important step as a successful design. Real engineers are interested in each design because they can always learn what works well, what does not, and how they can improve their designs to make them better. Point out that kids need to view their successes as getting the correct answer or having their technology work well. However, they can learn to value other forms of success over time with guidance from the role model. This is a cool tool that's included in every unit, and it asks the role model to identify evidence that the kids are meeting the curriculum goals and recognize the actions that they took to help facilitate this. This is a very good rubric or tool to quickly know if you feel like you've been successful or not. And it's very handy to use during your sessions. Questioning strategies. Even though kids might be working well together and sharing ideas during a design challenge, they might still have trouble creating a technology that actually works. It's important that kids troubleshoot their own designs. As role models, it's not your role to fix the kids' designs, but rather to focus on asking thought-provoking questions that will help guide the kids to troubleshoot and develop their own solutions. Developing their own designs and improvements empowers kids to take ownership of their projects and really helps them identify themselves as engineers. So, what do you do when it's not working? Again, Engineering is Elementary has identified several general categories of questions that are really helpful in guiding kids to improve or to encourage them to reflect on their designs and process. In every unit, there's a question card that is designed to encourage their kids to reflect and improve their designs with a focus on improve. The categories listed here can help develop questions that you could ask throughout the entire design process. Explain that while these are most common types of questions, these are also types of questions that there's also other questions that don't fit into these categories. For example, role models might ask, what was the most fun part of this exercise? What do you like most about engineering? Or do you consider yourself an engineer? However, by placing questions and these kinds of categories, it really makes the lesson much less threatening. Design choices are much easier to discuss. Ways to improve are much easier to discuss than assigning a grade. So it's important to use questioning strategies both during the design process and after the showcase. Take a look at this picture that's featured on the slide. Imagine that this technology was created by a group of kids. You recognize that the technology will fail when tested. It's key to ask questions, number one, when there's plenty of time to still improve it, and also when time is up during the showcase period. What questions could you ask your kids to help guide them to improve their design? Again, the big list of questioning strategies comes in very handy. A few takeaways. Okay, you've been exposed to a variety of questions that will help guide the kids to improve their technologies and reflect on their process. Key takeaways include asking questions about design choices instead of fixing the problem yourself. This encourages kids to think through their problems. Questions focusing on the design process can help all kids talk about their successes, even if their design isn't meeting the goals. So focus on the design. Asking every group how they might improve, whether it worked or not, emphasizes that there's always room for improvement. And finally, calling out the improve step for kids really helps them recognize failure as a natural and valuable part of engineering. If it's appropriate, mention some of the failures or the mistakes you have made in some of the projects you have done and the value of making mistakes. A good engineering experience is, of course, challenging for kids, but not so difficult. We don't want it to be so difficult that they become discouraged. In order to tailor the units to a difficulty level that's appropriate for the kids, you might need to make some adaptations to the activities. Consider these scenarios. How would you adapt them? Let's think about the tower power lesson. And here are a few scenarios. For example, the criteria is 12 inches, but after 15 minutes, most groups only have towers of 8. Groups have spent too much time preparing and not enough time constructing. Time is running out. Finally, some kids in the group find the challenge too easy, and some in the group find it too challenging. What would you do? Although you probably came up with many great ideas, here are 4 major places where adaptations can be made, either during preparation or on the spot. You might think about time. Depending upon your group, you might want to shorten or extend the amount of time for planning or creating the tower. You might want to give them additional time to make improvements as well. Materials. Materials can be expanded or limited. For more of a challenge, you might want to give groups only 1 or 2 feet of tape, for example. If groups are struggling, you might want to give them extra index cards or tape. Just make sure you give each group the same amount. Grouping is another strategy. As an educator or a role model, you know that youth in your program, they're not all the same. You might want them to choose their groups, or you might not. We are going to ask that the teacher begin by forming these groups. She or he knows her students better than anyone else. But again, during the project, you might want to consult with the teacher and possibly change up these groups, depending upon the success or unsuccess of the project. And finally, criteria and constraints. All challenges have them, which include time, materials, etc. These can be added to, some can be discarded. It depends, based on the kids you'll be working with. The last takeaway, how to identify success. Again, this chart really helps to know when to adapt, helps you know when to adapt a unit. You know, it's something that you're going to observe and participate with the students week after week. It's important for you to really reflect on this each week and share this information with your team members. What is working? What should we change? What should we modify? This is very important, and this is where communication with your team really comes into play. So this how to identify success chart really helps to know when to adapt a unit. The Engineering is Elementary website contains valuable resources for all of the projects. There are 3 categories of projects: Engineering is Elementary, Engineering Adventures, as well as Engineering Everywhere. If I click on Engineering Adventures, I can click on the Resource button. Once I'm in the resource area, I can browse all of the resources for each unit. Again, there is a drop-down menu so that you can click on each one and see resources that are associated with each unit. The STEM Up Baton Rouge homepage is there to provide you with networking opportunities as well as resources. In the forum area, feel free to post questions or concerns or suggestions for other folks. You'll also see some videos of the week that I've posted there. The resource section will feature lesson resources, as well as resources in general in terms of STEM mentoring, 21st century learning, STEM reports, and STEM career information sites. There's a news section that I will provide that operates sort of like a blog, so feel free to browse the articles there, as well as an opportunity to post photographs of your lessons in progress. Finally, we have a section where you can join STEM Up Baton Rouge. We would like you to do this, add your picture, and add your profile. Finally, if you would like to see a project in action, check out this great video of role models from the Illinois Department of Transportation using engineering as elementary in a 5th grade classroom. Here are a few takeaways before we move to next steps. First of all, we want to make sure that this is a fun experience for the students. Engineering is fun. There are no right or wrong answers, and as you'll see, there are no solutions. No two solutions will ever look the same. We want to make sure that they really understand the engineering design process, and at all points possible, reinforce that technology and engineering definition that was supplied in the unit. We hope that you support a very reflective unit, giving students lots of opportunities to think and discuss both in small groups and large groups. And we also recommend the use and the reference of a team contract to help collaboration. Remember that you're a guide. Use those questioning strategies that we talked about earlier. Try it out beforehand. And also make it personal. Use anecdotes from your own experience. Kids love to hear your own stories. Make it count. Middle school kids are starving for career information. This is a great opportunity for you to supply that information whenever it's appropriate. And finally, we hope that you have a lot of fun. The next section will talk about the steps that you need to take before launching your lesson. The first step is a quick review of the unit. We want everyone, including our teacher, to do a quick review of the unit and all of the activities and how they connect. Reviewing the activities will help you select the ones you might be interested in delivering and see how the lessons could be combined. Next, connect with your team. Exchange phone numbers, email addresses. Select a leader who will keep everyone informed of lesson progress. Meet in line or in person and meet with the teacher as soon as possible. And of course, we want you to join the STEM Up network. 3, connect your team with the teacher. We want you to really form a relationship with your teacher as soon as possible. He or she can provide practical information about the school, the rules, the procedures, such as parking, visitor badges, etc. Work out the schedule of activities with the teacher, picking a start date that meets both the team and the teacher schedule. Obtain advice about the curriculum, the scheduling and grouping, and assign lesson components to each member of the team. Next step is getting prepared. Practice at home. Use common materials that you have at home. Preparing is just obviously so important. Your STEM Up staff member will deliver the materials to the school as well as copies of the student journal. Next, the teacher. We would ask that the teacher prepare the class now on the upcoming lesson, giving them a very small overview. We would like for each teacher to send media permission home for signatures. We want to make sure that we have a media release for every student that's involved in the project. We also are asking that the teacher administer a pre-survey to all students and send a letter to parents regarding the unit. We also request that the teacher assign the teams and create and sign the learning or the team contract. Finally, you're ready to deliver the lesson. The team will facilitate the lesson, and at the end of each lesson, we require that you update both your team and copy us on the lesson results. At the end of each activity, we ask that you celebrate, and after the final project showcase, really celebrate the unit progress. We ask that you post comments and photos to the site, particularly of your showcase, And we ask that everyone participate in a post-unit debrief that we will sponsor. We ask that everyone that's participating in the project participate in the evaluation. We will have surveys available as well as conduct some interviews after the lessons are done. We ask that each teacher administer the post-project survey to the students, and when it's all said and done, let's share the results and pass it on. We will host a best practice event in June, and as always, we would like for you to continually encourage other colleagues to form teams. Last but not least, the Volunteer Handbook contains helpful information, background, team responsibilities, and essential forms. If you do not already have a copy of the handbook and forms, please contact us. We must have the essential agreement form signed by you before you can begin the project. If you have any questions whatsoever, please contact me at stemup@foundationebr.org. Thank you so much for participating in STEM Up Baton Rouge. We think that this will be a valuable opportunity for our students as well as yourself. Thank you again.